I was supposed to have a call with him. I think it's next week.
Okay. All right. So we're almost streaming. I'll get things recording. Okay, cool. Well, everyone out there on the interwebs, on Facebook and YouTube, welcome to another session of the lovely business podcast Mastermind. This is a podcast mastermind that was started by a few talented friends in the business and podcasting space, and then we expanded to create a weekly event where a wider audience can join. I'll give an intro to Henry Lopez, even though he's not here, myself, as well as Mark Hayward, who you see. Henry Lopez is a serial entrepreneur, small business coach, host of the top-rated How Business podcast, dedicated to helping others start, run, and grow their small businesses. He seems to be away this week. Mark Hayward's here. He's a business coach who helps turn ideas into businesses and also helps businesses grow. He's the host of the Absolute Business Mindset podcast, and he also runs a training program for people who want to get into podcasting. And my name is Ethan Janney, and my currently rapidly growing business and podcast is the Edge of Company, which is It's a media. It's a event, and it's a tech company, all wrapped into one. We have a podcast, which is top 50 in the tech space, called Edge of NFT. We have a convention in Los Angeles coming up in March, the 28th to the 30th, which features speakers like Mark Cuban and Neil Strauss. And in addition to that, we're also working on some technology developments, which we will update people about later. But today we're here to talk about podcasting, or whatever Mark and I decide we want to talk about today.
Well, first things, Ethan,
go ahead.
For your event, do you want to come on my podcast and promote your event and have that?
Sure, man.
Get some more people interested, different people open to it. So let's try and get that in the next week, or this week's a bit of a struggle, but maybe next week or the week after. Yeah, and then tell me when you're when you want it promoted, and I can sort of jig it around my timeframes to get your release at a time which will be impactful for you as well.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds great.
Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Do you know one thing I'm doing, which I've started, and we've actually got the first release on Wednesday? We're actually we actually built an email list, and we're going to do it manually first of all. But if it works out and I start getting traction, or people give me feedback, which is good, we'll systemize it. But yeah, we've created an email list. I've chosen guests on my podcast previously, and some people that I've had business relationships with or interactions with, and sort of use that as I know GDPR. I'm going to get myself in trouble here. You need to get approval, but I kind of think if people have engaged with me or have worked with me, I think you get round that point. So I'm going to start that, which my assistant's been writing, and actually he's been doing quite a good job. And we're going to do 1 week Absolute Business Mindset podcast, the other week podcast introduction group, the guest business, and we're going to alternate sending one every week, one for the podcast and one for the business. And we're trying to add a bit of content, add a bit of value for people and things to do with podcast and podcasting. And I think it'll be interesting, because I think it's something that I've thought about for a while, but just never really had the time. But now with the assistant, he's bringing quite a lot of value in certain areas, and he's doing well. And so we thought we'd just throw out a couple of very basics, like we're not going to use MailChimp or any of those providers initially. We're literally going to do a copy and paste. I've got all the list of names just to trial it. I'm all for the marketing, and just trial it for a while, see if we get some reaction. If we do, then great, keep doing it, and then probably systemize it. But what's your experience on email lists?
Oh, I've got quite a broad swath at this point for different projects. My most successful, I think, independently managing an email list has been the Piano Technicians Masterclasses project.
Right.
And for that one, when I first heard about this idea, of like you email people often, like you email them like once a week or
Yeah.
twice a week or sometimes every day, depending on what you want to talk about.
Mm.
I wrap my head around why you want to do that, and I did that with this list. You know,
Mm.
not all the time was it like an every day, every week kind of thing, but it's a few emails that go out a week, and just it's been an interesting exploration, sort of just getting into that mindset of people might want that messages that
Mm.
often, first of all, and it becomes a conversation that you're having. You're always adding some value, and you're not
Yeah.
always, you know, you're selling something, but it's not always. It's just sort of like, oh yeah, by the way, you know, you and I have a great relationship, but of course, remember, yeah, we've got this or we've got that.
Yeah.
You know, we're just keeping in touch, though. You know,
Yeah.
um, so that's been that, and then we have a newsletter, more of a newsletter, which it feels less of a relationship, more of a you know, like a magazine or whatever you
Yeah.
might want to call it, like a
Yeah.
publication that we do now with Edge of NFT. That has its own traction and its own growth. Um, and but I do like I ever since I happened upon this philosophy of it's really less of like this sort of impersonal newsletter, and it's
Mm.
more about sort of building a very personal relationship that feels like one-on-one, even though it might go to multiple people.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting journey.
Yeah, I think so. My aim is for the podcast one is to sort of add value regarding training and sort of business, more business stuff, and then share a couple of episodes on the list. And I think I'm gonna give my email address out, and people can directly contact me if they've got questions. And then the guest business is going to be a bit more on trend on what it is to be a guest and how to add value and what you can do to make yourself the best guest. It'll be interesting to see if we get a lot of traction. A couple of my friends have done this with mixed response. One person says it's doing really well. She's a coach, and she said, look, I'm getting really good traction, people asking questions, interacting with me about my content. The other one is she's a mediator, and she sells courses through using this method, and she's heavy on LinkedIn, doing lots of lives at the moment on LinkedIn, and but she says the email list is not shown as much potential as she'd perhaps hoped, but so yeah, I'm gonna trial it. We'll do one a month alternate on the business and the podcast, see what sort of traction we get. I'm happy to systemize it and create an email list and just send it, but I thought instead of spending whatever it is, $15 a month on MailChimp or one of the other versions of that, it'd be better just test it for a bit and then see what happens. And so that's an experiment we're going to do. The other thing that's been I've got another assistant. I managed to get 2 out of the government.
Nice.
And he's starting on Thursday. Interesting because he has no hopefully he's not watching this. He doesn't have the skill set in the sense of he's had no experience. He's experienced his catering and various private shopper and all this sort of stuff. But he talked quite knowledgeably about social media, making yourself sort of omnipresent on lots of different social media platforms. And he sort of said, look, this is something I think I can do. I'm on social media all the time. He's about 18 or 19. So